February 2026. The United States launches 900 airstrikes against Iran in a single operation. Iran's air force shredded, its navy sunk, 30 warships destroyed inside 5 days. Nuclear sites, missile launchers, radar installations, command centers, all gone. By every conventional military metric, this was a decisive, total victory. 4 weeks later, oil hits $126 a barrel. Dubai is evacuating. And Iran's new supreme leader sends his first public message in writing. The strait stays closed. This is the story of how the most powerful military on Earth won a war it couldn't figure out how to finish, and what it reveals about the gap between military power and actual strategic control. A gap that's now bleeding directly into the global economy. I'm Jimmy, and this is Capital Misfires. The plan had a clean, confident name inside the Pentagon. Decapitation. Kill the leader. The regime collapses. The population rises. Everyone goes home. It worked on Saddam Hussein. It was the established playbook. Why question what isn't broken? At 6:45 in the morning, Israeli jets struck the Supreme Leader's compound in Tehran. The Supreme Leader, his daughter, his son-in-law, his grandchildren, all gone in a single strike. Within hours, the U.S. and Israel had hit over 900 targets across the country simultaneously. The Pentagon's assessment was confident and immediate. Decisive military superiority achieved across all domains. Technically, they weren't wrong. But here's the part that didn't make it into the official briefing. The Supreme Leader was 86 years old. He'd been battling prostate cancer for years. Intelligence reports indicated he knew the strike was coming. He refused to take shelter. He stayed at his desk in Tehran with his family present. He was prepared to die. He may have actively sought it. And in Shia Islam, that's not a defeat. That's a martyrdom. And martyrdom doesn't end movements. It ignites them. Within 48 hours of the strikes, the Iranian military did something the Pentagon's wargame models hadn't fully accounted for. It decentralized completely. Every region received its own standing orders. Every cell had its own targets and its own chain of command. The structure that American planners had spent years mapping and modeling, gone overnight, replaced by something far more dangerous and far harder to target. You cannot decapitate what no longer has a single head. But the strategic miscalculation ran even deeper than the military structure. The cities that took the heaviest bombardment, Tehran, Isfahan, Tabriz, were Iran's most educated, most progressive urban populations. The people most culturally and politically likely to have supported regime change from within if given the opportunity. The religious hardliners, the ideological fighters willing to continue regardless of cost. They were in the mountains, largely untouched. America spent billions of dollars in precision strikes, destroying its own potential allies and converting everyone else into committed enemies. That's not a side effect of the strategy. That is the strategy. And it failed at the most basic level of political logic. The retaliation didn't stay inside Iran's borders either. Within days, Iranian forces struck Dubai, Bahrain, Qatar, and Kuwait. Gulf states that had publicly maintained they were neutral, third parties to the conflict. Neutral is a word for press conferences, not for wars, because these Gulf states were never actually neutral. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, they're the financial backbone of the American power structure in the region. They sell oil denominated in US dollars and cycle those dollars back into American stocks, American treasury bonds, and American technology companies. They host American military bases on their soil. They opened their airspace for the strikes on Iran. Iran's response wasn't random retaliation. It was surgical targeting of the invisible scaffolding holding the whole system together. Hit the Fifth Fleet headquarters in Bahrain. Strike Aramco's Ras Tanura refinery, one of the single largest oil processing facilities on the planet. Target Dubai International Airport, one of the world's busiest transit hubs. The genius of Iran's strategy wasn't in what it destroyed. It was in what it exposed. These Gulf cities are engineering miracles. Glass towers, indoor ski slopes, man-made islands. But they were built on one fatal assumption, that nobody would ever actually attack them. Dubai's population is 90% foreign workers, people with employment visas, not loyalty. The moment drones started hitting hotels, the expats started booking flights home. And when the expats leave, the city simply stops functioning. Iran didn't need to destroy these cities. It just needed to scare the insurance companies. Look at a map of the Persian Gulf and find a narrow gap between Iran and Oman. That's the Strait of Hormuz, 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. And every single day, roughly 20% of the world's entire oil supply passes through that corridor. One narrow hallway connecting the Persian Gulf to the open ocean, and Iran's coastline runs along the entire northern edge of it. On March 2nd, Iran shut the door. Not symbolically, not as a negotiating threat, physically closed. Drones loaded, missiles locked on target, any vessel attempting transit taking fire. Tanker traffic through the strait dropped 81% in a single week. Within days, Brent crude blew past $100 a barrel for the first time in 4 years. It peaked at $126. Japan gets the majority of its oil through Hormuz. India gets 45%, China too. The price of energy didn't just spike. It restructured the cost of everything attached to energy, which is essentially everything. But here's the piece most coverage completely missed. The strait doesn't just carry oil out of the Gulf. It carries food, medicine, and industrial supplies in. When the strait closed, oil stopped flowing to the world, and food stopped flowing to the Gulf states simultaneously. The American empire spent decades building its regional center of gravity in a geography that cannot feed itself without open shipping lanes. That's not a vulnerability that emerged suddenly. That's a structural dependency that was always sitting there, waiting for someone willing to exploit it. Iran was willing. And then the insurance companies moved, which turned a military crisis into a full economic one almost overnight. By March 5th, protection and indemnity insurance, the standard coverage every commercial vessel needs just to operate legally, was pulled entirely from the region. The few insurers still willing to quote coverage were pricing it at 5% of a ship's total value per single trip. For a large oil tanker, that's $5 million for one crossing. The ships stopped coming, not because of Iranian missiles, because of actuarial tables. Iran's geography made this move almost inevitable from the start. Its coastline runs along the high ground, mountains, hidden launch sites, caves looking straight down at the flat, fully exposed southern shore. Every oil field, every desalination plant, every airport on the Gulf Cooperation Council side sits in plain sight from Iran's elevated positions. Iran didn't need to win the air war. It just needed to make transit economically impossible. And it did exactly that without firing a shot at most of the ships that stopped coming. Here's the part of this story that cuts deepest, and the part that explains why the United States genuinely cannot fight its way out of this situation the way it used to. Meet the Shad 136, 11 feet long. Wingspan smaller than a mid-size car. Flies at 115 miles per hour. Launched from the flatbed of an ordinary truck. Navigates by GPS. Dives into its target and detonates on impact. Cost per unit, somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000. Iran produces between 200 and 500 of them every single month. Now here's what the United States uses to shoot them down. A Patriot missile interceptor, $4 million per missile. And because the Shahid flies low and small, the intercept often misses, so you fire 2, sometimes 3, to guarantee the kill. Do the math. For every single dollar Iran spends putting a Shahid in the air, America spends between $80 and $200 shooting it down. And Lockheed Martin produces approximately 620 Patriot interceptors per year. Iran can manufacture more drones in a single month than America can build interceptors in an entire year. But the cost asymmetry is only half the problem. The other half is mobility. The Shahid launches from a flatbed truck. 5 drones. You park behind a building, fire, and drive away in under 3 minutes. The truck looks identical to every other commercial vehicle on the road. By the time a satellite identifies the launch signature, the launcher is already sitting in traffic 2 miles away, looking completely innocent. Patriot missile system requires 6 separate major components just to become operational. Radar array, control station, antenna mast, power generators, launch platforms, and the missiles themselves, minimum 30 minutes to deploy from scratch. Visible from satellite imagery at all times. Once Iran locates one, it becomes the target. The American military was engineered for a completely different era, built for Cold War deterrence, where the entire strategic logic was to never actually fight. You construct the most expensive, most terrifying weapons architecture possible, and hope the other side blinks first. Like a bodybuilder who spent 20 years in the gym but never actually been in a street fight. Impressive from a distance. Different story entirely once someone throws the first punch. And here's the darkest layer underneath all of it. The defense industry doesn't profit from winning wars efficiently. It profits from expensive weapon systems. A $50,000 drone interceptor doesn't make anyone a billionaire. A $4 million Patriot missile absolutely does. The incentive structure was never aligned with finding cheap, effective solutions to asymmetric threats. It was aligned with selling the most expensive possible response to every problem, regardless of whether that response actually works. 3 weeks into the conflict, with oil spiraling and the global economy openly screaming, Trump threatened to bomb Iran's energy infrastructure unless the strait reopened. Iran didn't flinch. Trump pivoted, claimed productive diplomatic talks were underway. Iran's foreign ministry responded publicly and immediately. There are no talks. This is a lie. Trump announced a 5-day pause on strikes. Markets surged. Oil dropped. Nothing changed on the ground. 4 weeks in, Iran has a new supreme leader, the dead leader's son. His first written communication was unambiguous. The strait stays closed. The war continues. Every drop of blood will be answered. The regime didn't collapse. It consolidated around the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard, which is now effectively running the country. And America is caught in a trap with no clean exit on either side. It cannot walk away, because if it does, every Gulf state loses faith in American military guarantees forever. The petrodollar system starts fracturing. The empire openly admits it was a bluff the whole time. It cannot stay. Because every single day this continues, America burns millions of dollars shooting down drones that cost less than a used pickup truck, while the global economy bleeds from a wound America inflicted on itself. The whole thing was supposed to be clean, surgical, a quick demonstration of overwhelming force, followed by a compliant regional order. Instead, It became a masterclass in the difference between military victory and strategic control. You can win every single engagement and still lose the war if the other side simply refuses to accept the outcome you planned for them. As someone once said, an empire founded on war has to maintain itself by war, and that works right up until the math turns against you. Right now, the math has turned. This is exactly the kind of story Capital Misfires exists to break down, not the surface-level narrative, not the press conference version. The actual systems underneath, the cost asymmetries, the strategic miscalculations, the economic dependencies that nobody talks about until they're already breaking. If this gave you a clearer picture of what's actually happening and why, drop a like, leave a comment with your take, and share this with someone still running with the decisive military victory headline. Subscribe to Capital Misfires for more analysis like this, the stuff that doesn't trend but absolutely should. I'm Jimmy. The strait is closed. Keep your eyes open. I'll see you in the next one.